Greetings, everybody. Welcome back. So the act of buggery between consenting same-sex couples has once again been deemed illegal in Trinidad and Tobago by the appeal court. We do have on the line this morning Rudolph Hanamji, attorney, chair of the TT Chambers ESG committee, which looks at diversity, equity and inclusion, public governance and innovation specialist. He is also a human rights advocate for the past 25 years and co-founder of Pride TT. Rudolph Hanamji, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Marlon, and to all your viewers and listeners. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Your initial response to the ruling by the appeal court?
Well, just to add to your introduction,
Yes.
It criminalizes not just same-sex intimate practices, but also heterosexual same-sex practices. And this is what we find so ironic about this archaic piece of legislation. I mean, just to be a bit facetious for a moment, Marlon, the reversal of the lower court's decision, ironically, criminalizes overnight perhaps half, if not more, of the population's private activities. And parliamentarians, especially in this season, should understand and accept their responsibility when they return to the Red House after April 28th. Because in a very real way, 41 people have been buggering the society for a number of years, and they are probably in breach of this act because they are not listening to these concerns and the demands of a wide cross-section of the population to move away not only from this law, Marlon, but the entire colonial era legislative suite, which was wholesale adopted by our founding leaders through the Savings Law Clause. And that is an inefficient and archaic approach to governing a country. So our response is that this is a farcical slap in the face of law-abiding citizens who just want to be private in their own homes as consenting adults to choose what they want to do with themselves and their partners. And it is underscoring that people in society need to mobilize better and more effectively to inform government policy, because the parliamentarians are not listening. They're hoping the courts will save them, but the court said it plainly. It's unconstitutional. However, our hands are tied. Parliament has the responsibility to fix this mess.
Yeah. Is it your view at all? Because some people may believe that the Parliament, they may believe that the court should be able to decide as to what an individual does within their home privately. I know that there is a similar sort of argument when people, and I've seen it internationally, can't remember if that has been the argument home here in Trinidad and Tobago, but when the argument, when people speak about abortion, they always say, well, here's what. The court shouldn't decide as to what I do with my body. Is that a similar sentiment and position that you all have taken, that the court, the Parliament, should not tell us what to do with our bodies privately?
Well, personally, I lean towards pro-life.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I think that a lot of heterosexual people are very irresponsible in the way that they bring children into this world. And that's why family planning and education are important, as well as birth control and other initiatives that preempt the need for an abortion. But in a very real way, this is a similar issue. Women have led that charge for a number of years, the feminist movement, that they have a right to oversee their bodies. And some people, as far as they are concerned, having to birth a child and carry a child for 9 months is a decision that is personal to them. And I'm glad that you raised that, because that is the larger issue here. It is a matter of looking at our society and how we have evolved over time and coming to terms with some harsh realities that while we are perhaps per capita the most religious country in the entire world, there's a lot of hypocrisy, and religion unfortunately conflicts with the way that people live their lives, because we're a small country. We all know what happens anecdotally and in our personal lives. There are real impacts in how bad legislation impacts people's everyday lives. And if you want to go with the abortion analogy for a moment, there are so many documented cases of abortions done outside of clinical settings in this country. I mean, they have been reported in the newspapers, reports have been done on them. Perhaps there is time when parliamentarians, policymakers, again, look at these issues and come to terms with how can we enforce legislation and regulations in a way that protects everyone's interests, because people can die from these things. And to go back to the Buggery case for a moment, the law reinforces bullying practices. It reinforces the point that queer persons or even straight people that act in a certain way are somehow different. They are dehumanized. They are criminals in the eyes of the law. And only a few months ago, a young boy took his life, Jaden, because he was bullied at school, because people believed that he was queer and they were making fun of him. And we also have a sitting prime minister who has basically admitted that as a teenager, he practiced himself as a bully against other people. So these types of laws that we have maintained from our colonial past have long since been changed in Mother England, if you will. They have moved for decades away from these types of laws, and quite frankly, there are many other laws on our books that make absolutely no sense.
But you don't
and that is the role of Parliament.
But do you think that when we're speaking about buggery, homosexuality, that it's still a very much taboo issue in Trinidad and Tobago? And I think that a lot of people, including the parliamentarians, they are hesitant to touch the issue to touch these issues because of what the political repercussions may be.
Well, I have a note for them. Queer votes matter, and ally votes matter. And in this election, a few votes probably are going to make the difference. And on this occasion, all of us should be, awake. We should be awakened to the reality that we have a role to play in informing that policy. And I will tell you, Marlon, in my many years as being an openly gay individual in society, an advocate in the space, and my work in the corporate sector, etc., I will tell you that it's actually not as big a taboo as people make it out to be anymore. And I think parliamentarians use that as a cop-out, because if you use marijuana, for an example, when the current administration took a decision to change legislation to allow certain grams of marijuana to be on person without penalty, there was some pushback in the society, and people used the same argument and said this is a taboo subject, nobody's ever going to support this. But by and large, the population accepted that there are people in society who utilize this drug for different reasons, similar to alcohol and cigarettes, and therefore some space must be made for it. So I think to continuously say that it's taboo, it's a bit hypocritical, because I must add that there are sitting MPs in our Red House who are gay. And I wish some of them would finally be honest with the population and come out and to stop being hypocrites and hiding behind, translucent veils, because they have a responsibility to if not the others, they should be the ones championing this specific area of legislation, because again, it's a small country, everybody already knows, but we play these games with the population. And I frankly have reached my saturation point with this nonsense as an advocate, not just in this area, but in other areas. A group of persons and myself, we are launching next week a campaign entitled Rep TT. It is under an NGO, our portal for accountability and representation for Trinidad and Tobago, that we formed. And we are going to do our best to hold parliamentarians accountable, finally, for what they promise during election campaigns and what they deliver. Because they have to govern for us. They work for us, Marlon. They are public servants, even though they are paid higher salaries than most public servants. But I'm a voter, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm fed up of their nonsense. And I'm not seeking redress in the courts. Jason is right to go to the Privy Council, but we have to seek redress for these and other matters in the Parliament.
Yeah. I was going to ask, but you said that Jason is going to appeal this matter at the Privy Council level. Yes. How do you see? Is it that you feel that that we in Trinidad and Tobago, the laws have to change with what exists today, because maybe those laws would have been based on, to use a former Prime Minister's words, on moral and spiritual values, you think?
Well, the interesting thing about our Constitution is, while it acknowledges the Almighty, it also states that we are a secular society. And moral and spiritual values, in many ways, while some of them are universal, so for example, the act of killing, the act of lying, things that are universally held, I want to remind the public that a lie in its own right is not illegal. A lie in a specific situation in law is illegal. So you have to take these things, like adultery, for example. How many straight men in particular have cheated, to use local parlance, horned their wives, and divorces are incurred as a result? All of these things are protected and allowed in law, and no man is brought before the court and used and found guilty under biblical terms for breaching one of the commandments, if you follow Catholicism. In Hinduism, for example, there are practices, and also in Islam, that if we try to mirror those practices and govern society with legislation, people would revolt, including people from those religions. So we have to be fair and balanced about these matters. So you take guidance from religion, but at the same time, there are people who don't ascribe to religion in that way. So why should their private lives be curtailed once they are harming no one else? And that is the point. Pedophilia, rape, molestation, abuse, assault, all of these things are already protected under the law, and people have rights and provisions where they can find justice if these things happen to them. But what we're talking about here is consensual private practices. And again, the court has said that no case has been brought under this law. So what is the point, Marlon? Let us ask the honest question. What is the real point of maintaining the law?
Well, which gives rise to the question, how are they going to prove this? And how are they going to enforce the law?
It's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous law, Marlon. And what is your neighbor going to peep through your windows and videotape you and report you to the police? I mean, I really don't understand why we have, again, I want to underscore, not just this law, but a number of other laws on our books. Do you know there's a law that you're not supposed to blow your horn at a certain time of the night? There's a law about how you should use the cinema. There are things that just have stayed there because parliamentarians have been lazy. And it does not require more than 30 minutes. You can get rid of these things with the stroke of a pen.
Yes. Rudolph, I just have about a minute again. Anything else you'd like to add to our discussion?
I just have to make a call for parents and people out there who have learned behavior around prejudice, not just against gay people, Marlon, but anybody. People with Down syndrome, people who are too short, people who will look a certain way. Let us not continue to bully people and to make fun of people, because those injuries, Marlon, sometimes last much longer than physical ones. And we don't want to create a society where we are dividing and hating each other. We all want to support each other and share this beautiful country and build it together. So if you're interested, go to ourpart.org, OURPARTT.org, and let's use the next 4 weeks to try our best to influence national policy, because whoever sits in Parliament on April 29th has to govern for all of us. And from that day, as a society, let us all hold them more accountable and let us ensure they really represent all of us and not just some of us.
Yes. Rudolph, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for the time that you have taken with us this morning. Bye for now, Rudolph. All right, everybody, we are going to a very short break. We are coming back.